Coming up, an in-depth look at the Resiliency Center in Lewiston, Maine. And a new resource at the Massachusetts General Hospital brings community and connection. Hello and welcome to Beyond the Headlines, a WEBJ news special. I'm Molly Doherty. Today we'll hear from gun violence survivors in New England and across the nation about their experiences. We'll think critically about the ethics involved when covering instances of gun violence. After tragedy occurs, it's often the community that comes together in troubling times. In October 2023, one community in Lewiston, Maine was forever changed. A mass shooting in the local recreation center and neighboring bar took the lives of 18 people and injured 13 others. We now go to our reporter Faith Pinno, who brings us the story of a community's resiliency in the face of tragedy.
Thanks, Molly. Now, as you can see behind me, at the Maine Resiliency Center, messages of love, strength, and support continue to trickle in. That's because here, people in the community have not forgotten what happened in October of 2023. And this is just one testament of how much strength and support continues to flow through the community.
Just 19 days after the Lewiston shooting, the Maine Resiliency Center was created.
We opened the doors and 8 people showed up. They happened to be 8 people who all came from the bar. And we ended up hosting an impromptu support group that very first day. By day 4, there were 60 people here.
Some came from the bar, others the bowling alley, all of them reeling from the events that claimed the lives of 18 of their neighbors and injured 13 others.
People don't talk about the date often. They talk about it was a Wednesday night. It took me a long time to figure out what that was about. And it was about the fact that that was the night that people went to be in community with one another. Wednesday nights were league night. Wednesday night was cornhole league, and it was bowling league, and it was youth bowling practice night, and that was what got taken away.
Tasked with supporting the community in long-term recovery, Danielle Parent understood that connection was at the heart of healing.
When they can sit there and talk to somebody that was there with them that night or whatever, there's an understanding.
For survivors like Dyer, patching the physical wounds was just the beginning of recovery.
There's still 13 of us that are living with it that can't hide from it. I wake up to it every day. I sleep to it every day. There are many more people that are affected by it because they were there emotionally. There's things that are still caught up. There are people that were there that tried to help save lives and were like right into it, something they didn't sign up for.
Soon, group sessions turned into group dinners. Workshops went hand in hand with game night, and those who searched for recovery built lasting relationships.
My wife, she went to the first one. She convinced me to come the following week. She says, "Oh, you ought to go." And when I came here, I haven't missed a Tuesday since. Those who are, every Tuesday we go, are people I didn't know at that time, but now we're family. And one of them even a few weeks ago asked me to be his best man at his wedding.
Brought together by grief, the people of Lewiston find strength in numbers.
If somebody needs something, we're there. Their kids, we're there for them.
Now, 16 months after the shooting, the Resiliency Center is seeking state funding to keep their doors open, because for many members, the recovery has just begun.
I really have to give credit to this community that we weren't building resiliency, we were rebuilding it.
The Maine Resiliency Center continues to be a space for collective healing, even amidst more gun violence. Just 2 weeks ago, there was another shooting about 15 minutes away that claimed the lives of 3 individuals. From Lewiston, for Beyond the Headlines, I'm Faith Pinno.
Thanks, Faith. While Massachusetts holds one of the lowest gun death rates in the country, the impact of gun violence is still deeply felt in local communities. At Massachusetts General Hospital, staff members work to support survivors with compassionate care and meaningful resources. Our reporter Danielle Dubois has more on a new and important program that's making a difference for those affected.
Thanks, Molly. I'm standing outside of Mass General Hospital where their team is currently creating a meaningful change for grieving families. At the end of a long hallway at Mass General Hospital, there's a quiet room, dimly lit, almost bare. Just a few chairs, a box of tissues, and a single picture on the wall. This is the room where doctors deliver devastating news, informing parents that their child has died, often because of gun violence. The room is simple by design, but the silence inside says everything.
This room is really bland. It's not meant to do anything but contain screams.
The MGH Gun Violence Prevention Center wanted to make a change. Informing parents of a child's death is never easy, but they wanted to create a safe haven for the families. Co-director of the Gun Violence Prevention Center, Dr. Peter Masiakos, wanted to bring a sense of warmth to this room.
And what we decided to do through the advice of the community was to introduce some culturally important trauma-informed care into the room, bring some color, bring some peace.
Over the past 2 years, a group of Emerson students have gone to work creating a mural for the quiet room, using hues of purple and yellow to bring a sense of peace and hope. Catherine Desmond, administrative coordinator of the Gun Violence Prevention Center, spoke on what this redone room means to the community.
Clementina once said before that when she got the news about her son that she left empty-handed and empty-hearted. So the fact that we're going to have a room that isn't cold and welcoming and people have resources in there and then different ways of stress relief, I think it's just going to mean a lot and help a lot in their healing process.
MGH's hope for this project is that hospitals around the country notice and decide to make their quiet rooms a little more warming as well.
The newly redone quiet room was dedicated here on April 9th and will be used in Mass General Hospital going forward. From Boston, for Beyond the Headlines, I'm Danielle Dubois.
Thanks, Danielle. Coming up, an in-depth look at how reporters approach coverage of gun violence in an empathetic way. And a discussion with the Senior Director for Gun Violence Prevention at the Center for American Progress. All this and more after the break. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. As the journalism industry continues to evolve, there's a growing conversation about how we cover gun violence and whether it's time to shift the focus. New research is pushing for a change in perspective, urging reporters to frame gun violence as not just a crime, but also as a public health issue. In a study published by BMC Public Health in May 2024, researchers looked at more than 190 local news clips aired between January and June 2021. Their findings concluded that 84% of the coverage included at least one element that could actually harm the very communities it was trying to inform. One of the biggest gaps? A lack of follow-up, leaving viewers and survivors without a clear picture of what happened next. Our reporter Beilu Hagembis sat down with journalists in the New England region to discuss their experiences and ethical practices.
Now more than ever, journalists across the country are faced with the difficult task of reporting on issues of gun violence. Collecting information from sources and relaying it to the public in a timely manner is crucial for newsrooms.
But for Beth Germano, who is a reporter here at CBS Boston, reporting on gun violence is not only a matter of time and deadlines, but approaching with sensitivity.
So you have to learn boundaries, who wants to perhaps share their story, who doesn't want to share their story, but you can always just ask.
When it came to covering the Lewiston, Maine shooting, conducting follow-up stories with victims was of equal importance to the initial story.
We were going to need to do follow-ups as often as possible to make sure that the community knew that we hadn't forgotten about them.
Chris Costa is a news anchor at News Center, Maine. A year after the Lewiston shooting occurred, Costa, along with the News Center Maine team, produced a documentary titled Lewiston, What Went Wrong?
So we went and interviewed a lot of politicians about gun rights and gun laws, but we also wanted to make sure that for our viewers, they were able to understand basically from the beginning all the way up to the day of the shooting and then afterward what was going on.
Costa says reporting on gun violence is not only about including the tragedy itself, but looking at the bigger picture, specifically the legal and political side of the story. This is what reporters at The Trace, a nonprofit news organization centered around gun violence, focus on.
Gun violence is not an intractable problem. We know what the solutions are, but it's a politically intractable problem.
Jennifer Massia, a senior news writer at The Trace, adds that it's important to recognize how much power journalists hold when it comes to covering gun violence and that the narrative lies in their hands.
Gun violence stories are criminal justice stories, but they are also public health stories. And it's really important to center the people and not make it seem like a neighborhood is riddled with crime.
Costa and Youth Center Maine advises journalists everywhere to always lead with community voices.
Doesn't matter what story you're covering. It could be the biggest story or the smallest story. But if you don't get their experience right, if you can't convey the experience of the person that you're speaking to, have you really done your job as a reporter to understand their experience?
From CBS Boston to News Center Maine, reporters everywhere are shifting their focus to ethically report on instances of gun violence. For WEBJ News, this is Belu Redkipis.
Thanks, Belu. As reporters navigate this shift in ethical practices, our reporter Payton Cavanaugh discussed improving coverage of gun violence with Nick Wilson, the Senior Director for Gun Violence Prevention at the Center for American Progress. Here's a look into their conversation.
And why is it important for reporters to follow up on stories centering survivor narratives after the incident has already occurred?
The biggest impacts of gun violence doesn't happen just in the emergency rooms. It really doesn't sink in sometimes for months, just about how traumatic of an experience they've gone through and feeling the losses that they've had, whether it's financial or emotional, and bringing to light these challenges not only helps other people that are going through these same exact experiences. It not only helps them, but it really also helps those of us that are really focusing on reducing gun violence and promoting healthy and safe communities. Really helps us have a better understanding of what needs to be done, and also who's not getting access to the resources that they're entitled to.
Coming up, learn how two parents who lost their son in the 2018 Parkland, Florida school shooting are leading the charge for legislative change. And learn how gun violence disproportionately affects communities in Massachusetts and how state officials and local nonprofit groups are addressing these tragedies. Beyond the Headlines continues after the break. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. In the past year alone, over 16,000 people died from gun violence in America. For many survivors, artists, activists, advocacy has become a crucial piece of the story. For pop duo Ali and AJ, advocacy in the gun violence prevention sphere holds a personal connection. In 2022, the pair were caught in a crossfire in Sacramento that left 6 dead and 12 injured. Since the incident, they have advocated for change, partnering with organizations like Artists for Action through Sandy Hook Promise.
Being able to take our message and bring it to the stage has been a huge way of seeing this activism in real time. Being able to call on people in an auditorium, in a venue, and say, pull out your phone, text this number right now to donate. I think it just it really empowers people to get activated and motivated in that moment.
For many gun violence survivors, grief soon becomes an incentive for action. Our reporter Payton Cavanaugh spoke with the co-founders of Change the Ref, Manuel and Patricia Oliver, at their South by Southwest activation. The couple lost their son in the 2018 school shooting in Parkland, Florida, and are now dedicated to enacting change. Here's the story.
You can feel the sweetness, you can feel the bitter part of the story because it's bitter, but at the same time, it gives you that peace when you see all the, the surroundings.
This bus behind me has seen multiple parts of the country, bringing an impactful story of tragedy, hope, and resilience to the hearts and homes of American people. Change the Ref is a nonprofit dedicated to changing society's response to gun violence. Founded by Manuel and Patricia Oliver after losing their son Joaquin in the 2018 Parkland shooting, they've traveled the country for the past 2 years, turning grief into action. Partnering with Lush at South by Southwest, they created Bloom a New Day, an interactive installation that confronts the reality of gun violence in a powerful way. Visitors were encouraged to begin the experience seated in a mock classroom, using their phones to hear a recording of a simulated school shooting. Plastered on the walls, numbers showing the impact of gun violence in America, and sunflowers with the names of those lost in school shootings. Joaquin gave sunflowers to his girlfriend Tori for the last time on Valentine's Day.
So it became a symbol because those were the last flowers that he was giving to Tori and to someone.
The experience ends with an opportunity to speak with Manuel and Patricia and a call to action to sign their ongoing lawsuit, Joaquin Oliver versus USA, or the lawsuit for survival. The case asks the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to request the U.S. implement strong gun control policies to prevent further mass shootings and instances of gun violence.
Joaquin is suing United States through the Organization of American States because Joaquin was violated of every single human right.
Christina Delgado is a Southwest Advocacy Associate for Community Justice. The Texas mom became an advocate for school safety after the Parkland shooting. She never imagined a student would open fire at the local high school.
My friends lost their children in that shooting. My neighbor lost their niece. My daughter lost a classmate, and I nearly lost a friend who was saving children's lives.
The Santa Fe, Texas high school shooting on May 18, 2018 left 10 dead, including 8 children. For Delgado, the experience led to action.
Here in Texas, I never thought it would have happened, and I certainly didn't think it was going to happen in a small community. And if we do not make significant change, it is going to affect each and every one of us in some capacity.
For Manuel Oliver, father of Joaquin Oliver, the only way to drive home this mission is through conversation.
I would love everyone to talk about this in any single moment. I hate when journalists and reporters talk about gun violence only when something bad happened, when we all know that it will happen again. So we should be talking about this all day long.
Change the Ref is now back on the road, bringing their story to D.C. to sue the United States in Joaquin's name. From Austin, Texas, for WEBJ, I'm Payton Cavanaugh.
While gun violence continues to affect communities across the nation, Massachusetts has one of the lowest rates of gun deaths in the United States. Our reporter Belu Hadgembis breaks down numbers from Everytown Research and the impacts felt across Massachusetts.
Gun violence is an epidemic affecting communities across the country. While Massachusetts holds a record low number of cases in comparison to other states, it still significantly affects the community. Let's break down the numbers. In an average year, 255 people die from gun violence in Massachusetts alone, and an additional 688 on average are wounded. Suicides account for 56% of gun fatalities in the state. The magnitude of gun violence in the Commonwealth varies drastically geographically. Black and Latinx communities in Massachusetts are disproportionately affected by gun violence. While these communities make up about 20% of the population in the state, they account for 80% of gun violence cases in Massachusetts. Looking a bit deeper into the geographical locations, some counties like Hampton and Suffolk County experience higher rates of gun violence. While Massachusetts has been consistently ranked one of the safest states in regard to gun violence, it is still felt across the Commonwealth. That's all for your statistical breakdown. I'm Belu Hadgembis. Back to you, Molly.
Thanks, Belu. We now toss it over to our reporter, Lindsay Perdue, who sat down with Boston's Senior Advisor for Community Safety, Isaac Yablo, to discuss Boston's approach to this issue.
Thanks, Molly. Today we're joined by Boston's Senior Advisor for Community Safety, Isaac Yablo. Thank you so much for joining us today. And can you explain your role as Senior Advisor for Community Safety and how your work helps people of Boston and Greater Boston?
My job is to centralize the work across city departments to advance safety and justice and prevent violence in the community. And what that entails is a lot of meetings, a lot of individual conversations with people, really getting to know the different departments that are focused on the frontline work to prevent violence in the city. And then also, as Boston being the major city in the area, really the region, the economic hub of the region, safety hub of the region, medical hub, educational hub, leading the charge in addressing the regional crisis that is gun violence right now, and making sure that the surrounding cities and towns and other municipalities are also involved directly in the work that we are leading in the mayor's office.
With such a rich perspective of the Boston area and the communities within it, I was hoping you could speak to media coverage of gun violence in Massachusetts. In what ways, if any, do you believe journalists could be better serving communities in times of crisis?
It's triggering for families when the media, and historically how the media has attempted to swarm in and provide coverage on people that are dealing with real things that, by the way, are not normal, and that no human should have to go through. I've been on many different scenes where the media has attempted, and they prioritize getting a story over the experiences of the individuals, and I think that has caused and contributed to the harm, right? And I think, again, we're doing better now. There have been times where media has been receptive to understanding the experiences of people that are dealing with trauma and vicarious trauma, right? But I think the main thing is that historically, the media has framed people impacted by violence and communities impacted by violence in a way that is not conducive of, number one, people that do not reside in those communities viewing them from a positive light, and then the people that reside in these communities viewing these communities as places to be proud of. And don't get me wrong, there are, places where we need to do a lot better as a city. But just as a whole, the people of Boston and the communities impacted by violence are some of the most beautiful, diverse, some of the communities with the best food, by the way, and the best culture and music and spirit. But when we continuously frame micro locations within the city as entire neighborhoods or small percentages of people or ethnic populations as the entire ethnic group or people group, I think that's where the media in the past has gone wrong.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about your work or, the kind of vision you see for a better Boston?
Yeah, I mean, for so long, I think Boston has spent, and since the 90s, by the way, there's other, I go across the country and I talk about the work that we do here in Boston, and there's so many other cities that are just getting into this type of work, deep violence prevention, if you will, outside of pure law enforcement. We've been doing it since the 90s, really since the 80s, late 80s, mid 80s. You can't address the immediate crisis without addressing the root cause of the crisis. And what so many cities, including Boston, for so long did is what I call ambulance chasing, is you sit on your hands and you wait for the next thing to pop up because you know something's gonna happen. We live in a big city, tons of people, host of socioeconomic statuses and cultures and ethnic groups and whatever. There's gonna be something that happens when you blend this many people. But it's not enough to just sit on our hands and say, well, we know that Friday and Saturdays are, so we should activate then. What are you doing to address the root cause of it? So in Boston, what we do is focus what I call on the fire and the gas leak that led to the fire, right? So we have our immediate response to when violence occurs. I might be on scene. We have our community healing response network that's on scene, police, fire, EMS, etc. But we also have a long-term violence prevention plan that is meant to address the root causes of much of this violence.
Thank you for your time today, Isaac.
Anytime, and thank you for covering such an important topic.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Beyond the Headlines. I'm Lindsay Purdue. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Lindsay. As gun violence continues to be a growing concern across the country, nonprofits like Moms Demand Action turns grief into purpose, pushing for stronger gun safety laws and community education. The organization has chapters in every state in the country. Here in Massachusetts, the state chapter takes action to make a difference. Our reporter Shelby O'Brien reports from a recent demonstration, showing us how advocates are working to create life-saving changes.
WEBJ operations that I had to have active shooter drills. I had to worry if I go to school, will I go home?
Madeline Blessing knows the impact of gun violence all too well. When she and her twin brother were just 11 years old, their world was turned upside down. While they were playing in their backyard, a teenage neighbor shot her brother in the leg. He was lucky. He survived. But Madeline carries the weight of knowing that not everyone is as fortunate.
I felt really angry because I didn't understand why anyone would shoot a child.
Anger and disbelief is what motivated Ann Thalheimer to speak out against gun violence. She was in college when a fellow student opened fire on campus, killing 2 people and leaving 4 others injured. The trauma left behind has followed Thalheimer for 32 years.
You think you were the only person going through it, and discovering that there is a community of folks who understand it, share it, and work to change it is crucial.
This community, united from shared experiences of gun violence, is working hard to bring change. Leading the charge is Angela Farrell-Zabala, Executive Director of Moms Demand Action. Started in 2012, this group has worked with lawmakers, businesses, community leaders, schools, and more to pass stronger gun laws and close the loopholes that allow gun violence.
This is something that everyday people can step up and say, let's have these conversations about how we're keeping our communities safe. It's not just laws and policy. These are lives that we're talking about.
Blessing Thalheimer and Farrell-Zabala's continued rallying for change in gun laws and safety is all about building a world that's working to keep everyone safe.
All of this is preventable tragedy. So we are here to get the word out and get people thinking about it and talking about it.
Standing here surrounded by trees and nature, gun violence seems to be far from anyone's mind. However, over 250 people on average die by gun violence each year in Massachusetts, according to Everytown research. With this reality in mind, groups like Moms Demand Action won't sit still, and they ask that others step up as well. Reporting for Beyond the Headlines, I'm Shelby O'Brien.
Thanks, Shelby. Throughout this newscast, our reporters sat down with survivors to hear their stories and to better understand the many ways gun violence impacts lives. One of the big questions asked was how we as journalists can show up for communities during their most difficult moments. As we close out today, we want to leave you with the voices that matter most. Here's what survivors across the country had to say about the support they need and the kind of coverage that truly makes a difference.
Media controls a lot of the language, right? And even framing someone as a survivor versus a victim, that matters.
I think it's also really important that the media covers what people do post these tragedies to really move forward and create change and really help communities.
Center the human story about this. The unfortunate thing about this public health crisis is that we're almost getting to a place where we hear it so much that you can almost become immune to it. And I think it is important for media outlets and for anyone covering this to really be clear about the human toll that this is.
Maybe people weren't ready early on to have people showing up at their doorsteps. But then if no one ever comes back to hear that story again, that can feel like a missed opportunity or a loss.
The people that are involved, like myself, that survive but live with it every day, at some point we start feeling like we're left behind.
We are more than the headlines that show up.
Thank you so much for joining us today for Beyond the Headlines. I'm Molly Doherty. Have a good day.